The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
The 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had ordered them. When they saw him, they worshipped, but they doubted. Then Jesus approached and said to them, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always until the end of the age." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Men of Galilee, what are you looking up for? Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. Oh, it's a bird. But that's the last time you have to hear that bad ascension joke. He's gone. That's it. You know, I've often said the hardest thing for an American to say in 25 words or less is goodbye. Today, Jesus says to his disciples, goodbye. Gotta go. And the question is now, what do we do? What do we do when one that we have grown somewhat dependent upon and a little bit comfortable with and gotten used to his foibles and his quirks, and all of a sudden he's not there anymore, and especially when we're not quite ready for it and we think we might still need him. That was the case of the disciples. That may be the case that we may find ourselves in this situation over here. Where do we go? What do we do? We grieve and we mourn, and I think that's really important. I when I was getting ready for this homily today, I went back to the time I was a little child. Of course, we went to every Italian wake that there was, and they were always at least 3 days long. And by the second day, the widow would and she'd be sitting there, dressed in black, and you're going, oh, oh, oh. And then all of a sudden, I was about 7, she burst out and she says, "You no good son of mine, you leave me with 7 kids and no way of sleep." I'm going, Ma, what's going on here? And my mother says, "She's grieving." I said, "She sounds pretty mad to me." She says, "She is. She is. The grief is a form of anger that I have been abandoned. And how do I raise these 7 kids? And how do I make it in the future? I have depended upon you, and you are not here now. Now what do I do? How am I going to make it?" That's the really important part of our grieving process. But I think it's most important to remember when we begin to lose someone we think is irreplaceable. We're going to really miss you. We don't know what we're going to do without you. Remember the great line of the barber, "Next!" And the next one's coming. And the question for us is twofold. How do we let go of the one who's going? Because he's going. The Lord is ascending. He's not coming back. Oh, he's going to come back the way that he went up there. We've been waiting 2,000 years. We're still waiting. How do we let go of that? And then, how do we receive what's coming? And I think that's really, really critical for us to ask ourselves, what's going to be our attitude for the one who's coming? I'm going to ask that you not have the attitude that the little kid had when I got to my very, very, very first assignment. I was a baby deacon. I was just ordained. I was following, and it was at St. Simon the Apostle in Indianapolis. And I was following the deacon who was the year ahead of me. His name was Dan Hermes. Not only did he have the name of a Greek god, he looked like a Greek god. I looked like a Greek or Italian. And I got out of my car, and this little 10-year-old kid says, "Who are you?" And I had my little collar on. "I'm the new deacon." He says, "You are?" Deacon Dan was really, really handsome. By then it was thinning, He said, Deacon Dan drove a really neat little sports car. He said, "Is that your car?" I had just gotten out of my brand new car. The year was 1968. I was driving a 1950 Dodge Coupe. I said, yeah, that's my car. He said, oh, Deacon Dan was really a good guitar player, and he'd sing songs at the Hootenanny Mass. He says, do you play the guitar? I said, no. He says, Deacon Dan, he was really good at sports. And just then he picked up a football, he threw it at me, it went right through my hand. And he said, I said, I'm not too good at sports. He said, then what do you do? What do we do? Well, what are the expectations of the one who is coming? Because if you compare it to the one who is gone, it's always going to be a disappointment. But there are certain things I think we can expect and look for and call for from a shepherd. I think the job of the shepherd is very simple. Make sure that they're fed, that the sheep are fed, and protect them from the wolf, watch over them from the harm. And then the sheep have to reproduce the sheep. A shepherd never made a sheep. But I think those are things that we can expect. But there are certain things we cannot do. Certain places we may not go. And one of those places is in the land of comparisons. Especially comparisons in the egocentric order where we only see the outside of things. There was a young boy who was 10 years old. He was just getting his own identity. And he was a smart student, and he was a good-looking young man. And he was a baseball player, and he loved to play Little League baseball. And one day, something hit him, and he didn't know why he was feeling what he was feeling. And he went to his father after the baseball game, and he said, Daddy, why did I feel bad when Tommy hit the home run to win the game? Of course, his father didn't know what to say, but what really happened is that the young man had finally come into the egoic trap of comparison. You see, we define ourselves by these qualities that we have. And he saw himself as a baseball player, but if you are increased, then maybe I am decreased. If he was a little better, maybe I'm a little bit worse. And so the ego is always comparing itself to the other. And either we find ourselves down below or find ourselves up. And of course, it's going to go up and down according to the way we are praised, the way we are valued. It needs to be valued. But it's a shell. It's the outside. It's not who we really are. And when we focus on that, we are caught in a trap. You're the only one on the block with the $65,000 car, so you feel that you are valued more than the other until somebody drives up with a $100,000 car. And all of a sudden, you are in this competitive game and you can't get out, comparing one to the other to the other. How do we get out of here? What do we do? That's the question of the disciples. That's the question of us today. What do we do? Well, Jesus is telling the disciples as they are leaving, don't worry. I'm going to leave, and I'm really going to leave. But I'm not leaving you alone. There's something in you that will not go away. And it is not contingent upon how smart you are, how rich you are, how well you do, how much you screw up. It is not contingent upon anything at all. As a matter of fact, it transcends everything. What is it? A couple of days ago, Derek Starosa from our parish was back visiting, and he sat down with me. He said, Father, how many baptisms have you done? And I said, I can't even begin to count. How many weddings? I don't even know. He didn't ask me the most important question, the one I could have answered. How many sermons have you preached? I can answer that one. One. I've said it in about 800 different ways, but there's only one sermon. And this is the sermon. I wrote about it in the bulletin today. I talked about it to the graduating class from Elmhurst College yesterday in the baccalaureate. It's the same sermon because it's the same reality. In you is buried everything you need. Spirituality is nothing but uncovering what is already there. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to grab for. There's nothing to be proud of, because you've got everything you need. We were born with it. Our holy work is basically getting rid of the stuff that's not it. The comparisons, the judgments, the angers. And then there is pure gold buried beneath it. I told the students in the mystic tradition, we are told that in every human being is this incredible wine cellar. But we don't know what's there. So we spend most of our life drinking water when we could be feasting on wonderful, rich, vintage wine. So my prayer to the students was, stay thirsty, my friend. And drink up. Drink up from the fount of life. It's always been there. The job of the shepherd is to show you where to be fed. Here's where you're fed. You're going to receive power when I send forth your Spirit. Well, guess what? It's already been sent. Next Sunday we celebrate the Feast of the Pentecost, but Pentecost has already happened. It already dwells in you. Everything we need as a parish, not only to survive, but to thrive, it's already got. Already got. Our holy work is to uncover it, to see it, to relish it, and then to pass it on. To pass it on. See, one of the wonderful things that we have as a church is the traditio, the tradition. And we have elders who know that secret and live that secret. I've often said in this church we've got more local saints than you can shake a stick at. Find them, hang around them, learn from them. Because they have nothing to compare themselves with you. It's not for them getting more value. As a matter of fact, what they give away to you has no agenda at all. But what they give away to you is what they know that they've already got. The pure gold of the presence of the divine that will never, ever leave you. Your holy work is to mine it, to dig for it, and then to live it.